Hi everyone, my book is available for pre-order for 10 more days, and in light of that, I really wanted to share 10 things that surprised me while writing my first book. The first thing, number one, is that imposter syndrome doesn't go away. Before I started writing a book, I didn't feel like I was going to be taken seriously because of my age. I'm 24. While I was writing the book, I didn't feel like an expert. Why should I write this? And even while I'm selling it right now, it's really hard. I have days where I feel like there's no way I'm going to do this. There's no way I'm going to sell enough books. I'm going to have to give all the money back, and this is all a joke, right? But then I realized, I've worked really hard on this project. I'm really proud of my work. Imposter syndrome doesn't go away. That's number one. Number two is what I thought this book was going to be completely evolved into something so much more. When I first started this book, I really thought it was just going to be a memoir. I was just going to go chronologically through my life and try and share what I've learned and hope that maybe it helps someone. And then I started getting this idea, my story can't be that unique. I would love to learn what other people have gone through. And then I was talking to someone and we realized there's not a lot of queer books out there sharing what a healthy marriage looks like when you're queer into this whole collection that I'm really, really excited to share with you all. Number three, I didn't need to be an expert, but I became one through research. You don't need to be an expert to write a book. You become one while you're writing it through all your research. Through primary research, interviewing different subject experts and stuff, and also secondary research, quoting different articles and studies. I didn't need to be an expert, and that's pretty cool. It surprised me. Number four, as a perfectionist, turning in a mediocre first draft was so difficult. Professor Custer talks to us about this all the time. Your first draft is not going to be good. No one's is. A good book is rewritten. Finally turning it in to my editor and saying, okay, this is my first draft. It's not going to be the final draft, but here it is. It was such an interesting feeling. Turning in 40,000 words that I had created over the last couple months was really satisfying, but really scary. As a perfectionist, I wanted it to be complete, and it was not. Number five, everything becomes potential book material. Whether I'm listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video or on a call with a friend, things would pop up and I would have to write them down really quick in my journal. I hear other people talk about that, stuff like that all the time, but experiencing it myself was really interesting. I'm still doing that. I've already turned in my first draft. With the second draft, I actually get to interview more people if I want. I get to include new material, so I'm always on the lookout. I wasn't expecting so many little snippets of wisdom to just really pop out at me. Number six, I almost walked away twice, and I was not expecting that at all. With Seth Godin and the Alt MBA, we talk about something called resistance. When you're working on anything or want to do anything, and there's this resistance that pops up that gets in the way of creativity or completing a project. I think if I hadn't had a paid editor that was walking through this journey with me, I would have walked away from this, which is really sad and scary, but also gives me a lot of hope because I didn't. As someone who's really driven and focused, writing a book is hard. It's really hard to be vulnerable. Number seven, some days I loved what I wrote, and other days I absolutely hated it and I wanted to delete the whole book. And I'm really proud of myself because even on the days that I really didn't like what I wrote, I turned it into my editor anyways, and she always gave really great feedback. It all had a purpose, but I was surprised that some days I did not like what I wrote. Number eight, I thought having so many eyes on my book before it was published would compromise my story. That many opinions, how could it possibly keep its integrity? And actually having a developmental editor, an acquiring editor, a revisions editor, beta readers, and all of that, it's been so neat to watch it evolve. It started really simple. It started with what I knew, the stories in my life that always popped out to me and really meant a lot to me. My developmental editor would suggest, hey, I read this book and it really applies to this subject, and I really suggest that you read this because you might want to include a piece of information from this. Or, my acquiring editor was like, a lot of your chapters are really strong, but you should include more research. I think it would really strengthen it. Or a lot of your endings are really solid, but these 3 chapters kind of end really fast, so you might want to think about that. And these were things I wouldn't have caught on my own. So having that many eyes actually made it so much more rich. and that really surprised me. Number 9, emotional hangover. Writing a book is a vulnerable process. I promised myself that I would be honest while writing it, and I write about a few different things that are a little painful to admit that it happened, and I never thought I would share with other people, or I blocked or something, so that's like part 1 is the writing part, but also I have emotional hangover from selling. Writing is fun. I could write all day, but trying to sell something I've made is emotionally draining. I am thankful for all of you supporting me on my journey and being interested in what I'm creating, and I've kind of accepted that emotional hangover is part of the package when writing and committing to writing a book. Number 10, the last thing that really surprised me while I was writing, is that I didn't write it chronologically, and I don't know why I expected that I was going to do that. I just kind of assumed, I'll start at the beginning, and then I'll do the middle, and I'll do the end, and then it'll be over. And that got me stuck, and definitely had what felt like writer's block. There are no rules for how to write a book. I started jumping around and just working on what was calling to me in the moment, what needed to be written, what wanted to be rewritten before I turned it into my editor, all of that. And kind of going back to everything is potential book material, and that could be any part of the book, and so that would also cause me to jump around a lot. The 10 things that surprised me was that imposter syndrome doesn't go away, that this book evolved quite a bit. I didn't need to be an expert. As a perfectionist, turning in a mediocre draft was really difficult. Everything becomes potential book material. I almost walked away twice. Some days I liked what I wrote and sometimes I didn't. I thought that having so many eyes on my book would make it compromised, and that wasn't the case. Emotional hangover and not writing chronologically. Those are the 10 things that surprised me while writing my first book.